We're going to talk about a real standard modification today, and that's switching out the pickup selector switch out of a Telecaster, which is a real nuisance because it butts right up against the volume knob when it's in the rear pickup position. And I know Danny Gatton used to take a pair of pliers and just bend them downwards so they'd be easier to get. The easiest solution, though, I think the best one, is just to switch it out for a Les Paul switch. Or any typical, three-way toggle switch, which is what I've done. And something else I've done with this guitar is to actually flip things around. So instead of having the pickup switch in front, it's now on back. Now, I would put the volume knob in the middle, though, and the tone in front, so I switch those two around also. And so I got volume, tone, pickup. And it's in at a slight angle, you can see. Instead of going back and forth or straight up and down, it's a little bit like this. And it's a lot easier to do that way. It's a real simple modification to make. And so if you want to do stuff like, the typical pinky around the volume knob thing, it's much easier when it's up here. And the tone control, too, for those wah-wah sounds that Telecasters are so good at, it's all much easier to get at now. And now with mine, I didn't care about making it pretty because it's a pretty beat-up old guitar anyway. So I just used the original plate, and I don't know if you can see it from there, but I still have the slot from the old pickup selector. I just drilled a hole right through the middle of it to put in my new one. And the original screws that were in there, I just super glued them back in because they're not holding anything, but at least the holes are covered. And it's good enough for me. But if you want to, you can order a plate that's custom cut for these switches. A lot of people make them. This is getting to be a real standard modification. I've been doing it since the early 90s. At the time, I didn't see anybody else do them, but I figured there must be somebody else that had thought of doing this because the switch is such a nuisance on these Telecasters. I mean, they're a great guitar, but the switch, not so great. So at any rate, it's gotten to be so common, it's really easy to find somebody, usually on the internet. You can find just about anything, I guess. Find somebody that will custom make a plate for you for probably $30 or something. Control plate, I mean here. But on the other hand, if you don't know anything about metalworking at all, you could probably make your own for $5 or something. It looks pretty easy to cut out to me. Just going to put 3 holes in it, plus one at each end for a screw. Pretty straightforward. So I'm going to show you how we do this now. What you see now, this control plate was switched around before, so the volume was in front. You can see the old slot from the original toggle. So it used to be the toggle was in front, followed by the volume and the tone. Well, now I've got the tone and volume switched around, so the volume is in front, followed by the tone and the pickup selector switch. That's a real easy switcheroo. When you take these volume knobs off, there's just a set screw in the back. I think you can see that. So those little screw you take out, then pull the knob up, and underneath there will be like this, a nut holding the pot to the plate. And there's a washer underneath it. There's nothing to it. Piece of cake. And the old selector switch was held in by 2 screws. And we won't be needing those with this Gibson switch. What I did though, when you put this back, you can see there's still that slot there. Some people don't like that. It doesn't bother me. But there's still the 2 screw holes. And what I'm going to do is keep the old screws that I had from the selector switch and put them right back in the hole and just super glue them in there. So at least it looks natural, because I'm not going to be using the old selector switch for anything. Those things are a dime a dozen. I'm just going to pitch it, And this new one is held in by a nut instead. It's a screw nut, just like the pots are. So that's all there is to that. That's pretty easy. Switcheroo to take these out and just trade the volume knob and tone around. Now with the connectors here, I didn't take any video before with the old switch. I probably should have. But it's the same thing. What you'll see is there's a line from each pickup going to each side of the selector switch. And this selector switch with the Gibson, it's the same way that the Fender was. Fender had a line for each pickup, and then it had a line running to the volume pot, to the one of the connectors on the volume pot, not the back of the pot. That's a ground. And so we're going to wire each pickup, one to each side of the switch. And the middle one here too, this particular one, you might get one like this. Instead of just one prong in the middle, it had 2. And what you want to do is just push them together. We're going to use them like one. And then so you'll put that, and the reason we're going to even change the wires because the volume knob used to be closer over here. And when I moved it, I had to make a longer wire. So I had to replace the one that was there. That's why I got a green one here instead of a yellow, or instead of a white, because I didn't have a white wire handy. So anyway, after you've got that wired in, I like to wrap tape around this middle one, just to make sure that they don't, touch each other. Now on the back here, you'll notice something. The Gibson switch has a ground wire in the back. The Fender didn't have one. I don't know why. You would think they would have to have a ground wire. I don't know that much about electronics, but for some reason, they didn't. The Fender switches don't have a ground wire. The Gibson does, and what you want to do is just ground it to the back of the pot. At any rate, that's all there is to it. It's very simple. So you've got to have a new wire here for your ground, and you've got to cut a new wire to move the volume pot from the toggle switch. But, if you're going to put this back in the regular way, with a switch in the front, and you want it to keep the volume and the tone the way they were, and all you want to do is replace the toggle switch, then you won't need to replace that wire going from the toggle to the volume, because it'll be right here next to each other, so it makes it even easier. But that's about all there is to it. Piece of cake. Now some other modifications you can make that are pretty simple, and I haven't done it, I'm not going to. I mostly use a volume pedal, and I've been doing it for years and years. I'm just used to it. And I use, if I want to use a wah, I use a wah-wah pedal, So I really don't use these that much. Mostly I just want to change the pickup selector. But at any rate, if you really like doing that stuff, you want to really get into the volume thing like Phil Keaggy does, for instance. Something I figured out he was doing a long time ago, because I've seen him live enough times to know he wasn't really moving his pinky very far to go from 0 to 10. He was just doing like this. Whereas on this guitar, you go, and that's the way a Les Paul is too. But I figured out what he was doing. He must be putting a short tapered pot in there. And sure enough, he was. About less than 10 years ago, he finally admitted it in an article somewhere. But that's another real standard switcheroo you can do. If you, instead of having to rotate the knob way around to go from 0 to 10, it just goes a short way. And so that's pretty cool. I did another video where I showed about changing the saddles. I've tried 3 or 4 different kinds of saddles and bridges on Telecasters, and the only ones that really get that nice old Roy Buchanan kind of thick sound, really meaty, is the original Fender 3-barrel brass. They're just the only ones that do it. They're kind of a nuisance too. Sometimes the string likes to get caught in the slot with the screw, the adjustment screw, the height adjustment screw, and a lot of people got slots in them for that. I just put up with them. Anyhow, that's about the only modifications we're going to talk about. I got another neck coming from this guitar from Warmoth. It's a wider neck. In fact, it's the exact same dimensions as the neck on my Taylor acoustic guitar. So this should be, Telecasters, they make a really nice finger picking guitar too. But the one problem they have is the neck is really thin. And I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'5", so my hands are probably bigger than some of you. But I need a wider neck. I've always put up with Tellies for playing lead, they're fine. But if you want to play some really intricate chords, it's really hard to do when the strings are so close together. So when I get the Warmoth neck, I'll make a video for you and probably even put some bigger strings on it and just do some finger picking and show you how it sounds. Anyway, I hope that helped you.